vast arsenal of Nazi Germany during World War II, the heavy self-propelled anti-tank gun Zerner Kraftfahrzeug 184, known by the names Ferdinand and later Elephant, held a unique and highly controversial position. This was the product of a special circumstance, closely linked to the name of the renowned designer Ferdinand Porsche. Designated as a Panzerjäger tank destroyer, this combat vehicle was developed to counter the powerful tanks of the Allied forces, particularly Soviet models such as the T-34 and IS-2 in the midst of the brutal battlefield. When deployed, the Ferdinand was one of the heaviest combat vehicles ever sent into action. Its main weapon was an 88mm long-barrel gun capable of destroying most opponent tanks. The thick and solid front armor of the vehicle made it a mobile fortress, nearly impervious to direct hits during confrontations. The combination of powerful firepower and superior defense made the Ferdinand one of the most fearsome combat vehicles on the battlefield. The story of the Ferdinand begins with the development program for the Tiger I, the heavy tank that Nazi Germany hoped would overpower Soviet combat vehicles like the T-34. Initially, the project called for a tank weighing between 30 and 45 tons, but the requirements were later upgraded to include armor up to 100mm thick and an 88mm gun. The project was designated VK4 5.01, with two main contractors, Henschel and Ferdinand Porsche. However, during testing in 1942, Porsche's design revealed numerous weaknesses. The drivetrain proved overly complex, prone to failure and unreliable, especially under the harsh conditions of the battlefield. Issues with cooling, fuel consumption, and maintenance severely undermined the VK4 5.01P's performance. In the end, Henschel's simpler and more efficient design was selected for mass production under the name Tiger I. The name Ferdinand was chosen to honor engineer Porsche, who had designed the original chassis. The creation of the Ferdinand clearly reflected how Nazi Germany developed its weapons, a mix of technical ambition, political influence, and the need to make use of available resources. Despite unresolved technical issues, the Ferdinand was deployed as an improvised solution, most notably during the Battle of Kursk, where Germany needed overwhelming firepower to face the Soviet Union's formidable armored forces. The Ferdinand was designed as a heavy tank destroyer with a unique structure focused on eliminating opponent armor from long distances. Unlike conventional tanks, it did not feature a rotating turret, but instead utilized a fixed, heavily armored casemate that housed the main gun and most of the crew. It was one of the first Jagdpanzer models to adopt a fully enclosed upper structure, marking a shift from improvised tank destroyers like the Marder to more specialized combat platforms. The original VK4 5.01P chassis underwent extensive modifications to suit its new role. The engines were relocated from the rear to the center of the hull to make room for a large fighting compartment at the back. While the commander, gunner, and two loaders were stationed in the rear fighting chamber, the driver and radio operator remained isolated at the front, with communication only possible through the onboard radio system. At the heart of the Ferdinand's firepower was the 8.8cm PaK 432 L71 anti-tank gun, a variant of Germany's legendary 88mm anti-aircraft cannon, featuring a longer barrel and significantly improved performance. With extremely high muzzle velocity and specialized ammunition, the gun could destroy nearly any Allied tank, including heavily armored targets like the IS-2, from distances of up to 3 kilometers. High-quality German optical sights allowed the Ferdinand to engage opponents with precision before they could react. However, the fixed mount of the main gun limited its horizontal traverse to plus or minus 14 degrees, with elevation ranging from -8 to plus 14 degrees. This required the entire vehicle to pivot in order to aim outside its narrow firing arc, a major drawback in fast-paced combat. The Ferdinand could carry up to 90 rounds of various types, including armor-piercing, shape-charge, and high-explosive shells. Due to the size and weight of the ammunition, 2 loaders were necessary for efficient operation. The Ferdinand was renowned for its formidable frontal armor, up to 200mm thick, composed of 2 100mm steel plates, rendering it virtually immune to most anti-tank weapons of its time. However, the side and rear armor were significantly thinner, around 80mm, leaving the vehicle vulnerable to attacks from the flanks. The roof and belly armor were also relatively weak, at just 20 to 30 millimeters and 20 millimeters respect. The lack of angled armor reduced its effectiveness against incoming rounds. Other weak points included the lower front plate and the side cheeks. Its tracks and suspension were also highly susceptible to damage, especially from mines. A distinctive feature of the Ferdinand was its gasoline-electric drivetrain, inherited from the Tiger P2 Maybach HL 120 TRM gasoline engines powered generators, which in turn supplied electricity to two electric motors that drove the tracks. This configuration eliminated the need for a complex mechanical gearbox and in theory allowed for smoother control. However, in battlefield conditions, it proved unreliable. The drivetrain frequently suffered from overheating, extremely high fuel consumption, approximately 1,000 liters per 100 kilometers, and required constant, complex maintenance. The Ferdinand was notoriously slow, prone to bogging down, difficult to repair, and had limited operational range, about 150 kilometers on road and less than 100 kilometers over rough terrain. The rear mount fixed fighting compartment, mid-mount engine, and extremely thick frontal armor were all compromises made to accommodate the PaK 432 gun. However, these choices led to several drawbacks: a divided crew, overheating engines, maintenance challenges, poor maneuverability, and excessive weight. Moreover, the initial Ferdinand lacked any secondary weaponry, such as a machine gun for close-range defense, making it highly vulnerable to infantry if not properly supported. In July 1943, the heavy tank destroyer Ferdinand saw its first combat at Kursk during Operation Citadel, with a total of 89 vehicles assigned to the 656 Regiment. Hailed as a breakthrough weapon capable of smashing Soviet defenses with its powerful gun and thick armor, the Ferdinand quickly demonstrated its long-range tank-killing prowess. Yet these strengths were not enough to compensate for its technical and design shortcomings. From the very first day, many vehicles were knocked out by anti-tank mines, mechanical failures, or their complete inability to defend themselves at close range. The absence of a machine gun made the Ferdinand vulnerable to opposing infantry, who could destroy it with grenades or incendiary bombs. Recovery of disabled vehicles was nearly impossible due to their enormous weight and the lack of proper towing equipment. In total, 39 vehicles were lost during the campaign, most not due to opposing fire, but because of breakdowns, getting bogged down, or being destroyed by their own crews when recovery was not feasible. While the Ferdinand was credited with a kill ratio as high as 10-1, that figure masked the fact that most vehicles could not stay operational for extended periods. The Battle of Kursk exposed the fundamental limitations of the Ferdinand in modern warfare, a theoretically powerful machine that ultimately lacked the practical reliability needed to survive the rigors of high-intensity combat in harsh logistical conditions. After the failure at Kursk, approximately 48 operational Ferdinand vehicles were returned to the Nibelungenwerke factory for upgrades between late 1943 and early 1944. The main improvements included the addition of an MG-34 machine gun, a commander's cupola, Zimmerit anti-magnetic mine coating, and enhanced mobility features. However, these changes increased the vehicle's weight to around 70 tons. On May 1st, 1944, by order of Hitler, the vehicle's official designation was changed to Elefant. While the upgrades addressed several tactical shortcomings, major technical problems, particularly the complex drivetrain and excessive weight, remained unresolved. These enduring flaws reflected both the limitations of the original design and Germany's restricted ability to modernize the vehicle within such a small production run. After being upgraded, Elefant tank destroyers were redeployed to both Italy and the Eastern Front. In Italy, a unit was engaged in combat around Anzio from February 1944. However, the region's rugged terrain and poor infrastructure exposed Elefant's limited mobility, leading to numerous non-combat losses. One vehicle was captured and is now on display in the United States. On the Eastern Front, Elephants proved more effective in a defensive role, making good use of their long-range firepower. Nevertheless, they continued to suffer from persistent mechanical issues and the inability to be recovered when retreating. Germany produced a small number of Bear Panzer Tiger recovery vehicles to support damaged Elephants, but with only 3 to 5 built, they were far too few to meet operational demands. The lack of dedicated recovery equipment was a key factor behind the high loss rate of elephants throughout their service. Ferdinand, later known as the Elephant, stood out as one of the most formidable tank destroyers of the Second World War thanks to its heavy armor and powerful gun. However, chronic issues with mobility and mechanical reliability resulted in high losses. Today, only 2 vehicles remain on display, one in Russia and the other in the United States. The story of the Ferdinand serves as a cautionary tale in weapons development, underscoring the importance of balancing advanced technology with battlefield practicality.